When I am one part of your show, Ruben Calvillo, I am joined by Harley, and we have a special guest. You can find him 10 to noon on ESPN 97 to 5. Our first guest on the Believe in the Houston Texans podcast, Paul Gallant. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on. I feel very honored to be guest number one.
No, man. I remember hearing you back when I was in college. Then you went to Seattle. Now you're back, man. Shout out to you, dude.
It's good to be back. Hopefully, the football team that we're about to discuss is about to be back as well, because I don't think I missed much while I was in Seattle, except for Deshaun Watson and Jack Easterby
No.
and the end of Bill O'Brien
You
and the DeAndre
didn't miss
Hopkins
that.
trade and
You didn't
J.J.
miss
Yeah,
Watt
how was
asking out
that
of town.
leaving right before everything just went to hell?
Boy, it was tough to watch from afar.
Ugh.
Harley, you look handsome as ever.
As always. I always tell everyone I am taking ladies and gentlemen. Since we are in a great month.
Dog.
I am taking. All right, I don't want to get too caught up into that. I digress. But yes, I'm doing fantastic, man.
Yes, and before we start this episode, it was brought to you by Bet Online. Jump into the action right now. Hop into your mobile phone or laptop device. Use our promo code BLEV for a 50% bonus on your first deposit. Paul, I'll start with you. We were expecting big news on Monday from the Houston Texans. They put up a billboard in downtown, and drum roll, it ended up being J.J. Watt is going to be in the Ring of Honor against the Steelers. That will be his induction. Overhype, underhype. How you feeling about this?
I don't think this is nearly hyped enough because this is the best player in franchise history and probably will be the best player in franchise history for a very, very long time. I know for you guys and for me, I think we can all agree this is the best defensive player that we've ever seen every game of. And obviously, people that watch Aaron Donald every single Sunday, they're going to feel a type of way about him. People from the 1980s who loved Lawrence Taylor on the New York Giants, same thing. But for us, this is the best player in franchise history. This is a guy that had some incredible seasons, starting with the pick six that he had against the Bengals in the 2011 playoff game. The NRG Stadium goes absolutely nuts. He follows that up in 2012 with a just insane season that I don't think any of us expected. I remember Peter King going into the year said he thinks Brooks Reed's going to be the big breakout Texans defender. 2014, 2015, he's an actual MVP finalist. It's a shame that injuries took their toll the way that they did over the past 7 years, where he only played 3 full seasons and one of them was in Arizona. But come on, guys. I mean, I almost feel like we need more days to celebrate J.J. Watt and everything that he has done here.
Harley, how you feel about the news on Monday being J.J. Watt coming home?
Ruben, you know exactly how I feel. I express the same sentiments as Paul Gallant. I need all the JJ Watt content just flooded back into my veins. I start tearing up again. Like, I made the simple TikTok of just Andre Johnson in 2011 when, he had the touchdown against the Bengals thrown from TJ Yates, jumping into the crowd. And then 5 years later, 2017 or 20, somewhere around that, 6 years later, he's waving goodbye to the fans as Ring of Honor, and that hurt. And it started making me think of JJ, and I'm about to do a similar edit whenever the Ring of Honor happens for JJ, and it's going to hurt me because I'm going to be there. I got to be there to the Steelers game. I got to. It's JJ Watt. It's different for me. And I love Andre Johnson. I grew up watching Andre Johnson as a kid, and then I grew up watching JJ as a middle schooler, high schooler, where, the testosterone was pumping. JJ Watt was doing his thing. He was having the cheesy commercials of shut you down. I was hyped for JJ Watt. Turn Down for Watt was absolutely electric. And it might be a horrible ass song, but damn it, it was absolute just pop rocks when it came on. The NRG has never the electricity it had when that song came on after a JJ Watt whatever turnover he made, because he did about 1 trillion of them by himself. It's absolute awesomeness at its highest. I need more JJ Watt. I love him.
I wasn't that excited about it.
Oh, Jesus.
I knew this was coming.
This was classic.
I like the Zach. Let's hear it.
I want to be the star of the show. It brings me back to when he made that group chat when we were going against the Bills in the playoffs and he came back from injury. Look, this is classic. I want to be the main topic. This dude didn't even want to sign a one-day contract with us, man. With that being said, I do think JJ Watt deserves it, though. If there is anyone who does, it should be JJ Watt. Boys, what is your favorite JJ Watt moment? For me, it was when Zach Mettenberger took that selfie right before the game, and then JJ Watt absolutely welcomed his ass to the NFL and put him on his back 3 times.
It's a good one. I mean, is it cheating for all of us to say the pick 6 against the Bengals?
It is.
Okay. So there are a lot of fun moments with JJ Watt that, as you alluded to, there was a corny chapter of his time in the NFL.
Oh my God.
I think he became self-aware over time. There was some corniness. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was pretty hilarious when he said about Andy Dalton, yeah, we came out here to make the red-headed rifle look like the Red Ryder BB gun. Because it was very try-hard. There was also in Hard Knocks where he's flipping tires and all of a sudden Fort Minor pumps in and he's singing along to it. I love how Arlie's rolling his eyes along to this.
Yep.
Look, there's a lot of fun moments, but for me, it's the entirety of the 2015 season because it wasn't just that JJ Watt was racking up all those sacks. It was that he kept scoring touchdowns. That touchdown he had against the Indianapolis Colts where the ball just rolled into him and he picks it up and he runs it in for 6. You're like, wait a second. How the fuck did that happen? You had the same thing with the pick 6 that he had against EJ Manuel with the Buffalo Bills. And he catches a couple of touchdown passes as well. Maybe things didn't work out so well when they tried to use him in the shotgun formation in the playoffs.
I was just about to bring that bullshit up. I was at the game. I was in that end zone. I said, if this fails, we're getting blown. Or, like it's over. We should just walk out.
That's right, Ruben. You just got to think about that regular season, right? Because that's what the MVP awards for, the regular season. Don't think about the bad of that playoff game. But that whole year is my choice. And if that's cheating, I don't care. That year was fun, and I think he should have won the MVP, damn it.
No.
Yeah, that was mine, and I'll stick with something else. It's an MVP season. I say he's the MVP. People are like, no, Aaron Rodgers won. And I tell them, what are you talking about? And I correct them. I'm like, no, JJ Watt won the MVP. And then they're like, what? Really? And then they're like scrolling through, Googling again. And then I walk away and they're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm like, oh, I can't hear you, man, And man, that one's a tough one. I love the Colt game just because of the mic'd up Brian Cushing when the fumble is happening. And Cushing is like trying to get to the ball, and then all you hear is him, JJ, go get JJ, and he's running after JJ. JJ's already got the ball. He's already running 22 miles an hour down the goddamn sideline. Jesus Christ.
There's so many motherfucker back then, man.
There's too many moments for me, man. I love it all, despite that horrible Chiefs play that you mentioned. Him and Wilfork, what a tandem that offensive. Woo, we had the wishbone
horror, baby.
JJ and Vince Wilfork, man. Man, this is tough. There's that random Bengals game that you mentioned. He did absolutely nothing, and then he leveled an offensive lineman at the very end of he did nothing the whole game. The game was disgusting.
That was Deshaun's game, right?
The touchdown scramble.
Yeah, that was Deshaun's game.
It was an ugly game. And then this guy, they're lateraling at the end of the game, and then offensive lineman just sadly gets the ball hey, all right, turns around, JJ pancakes him, and then takes off his helmet like he was the best thing. He didn't do nothing in that game, but I loved it. There's too much for me to pick. Just give me you know what? The best moment is a JJ Watt compilation video on YouTube. That's the best moment.
You can't argue with like 18 minutes worth of highlights.
Straight heat.
Did they
All
play
right,
Fort Minor?
I don't know. I honestly haven't looked at a compilation video. But
Someone's got to put one back up, and it's just got to be Fort Minor. You ready? The entire time.
I'm gonna make an edit. And it's gonna be Fort Minor. Definitely doing that. It's gonna.
I
pop
appreciate
off.
your service, Harley.
Harley, I start with you. D'Amico Ryan said in the first day of mandatory minicamp that there will be an open quarterback battle between the second overall pick CJ Stroud and 30-year guy Davis Mills. How do you feel about D'Amico Ryan's comments?
You know, he even mentioned a few days ago just that they were both going to take turns, right? So, I mean, overall, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, at the end of the day, CJ Stroud's still the second overall pick. He's going to be leaned into this quarterback one situation some way, somehow, right? Like, he's the number 2 overall pick. I do believe the Texans are being a little precautious with, having the way he's going into being quarterback one. It feels like they're being cautious about this. And because I'm looking at some of the dialogue between CJ Stroud and then the rest of the rookies, D'Amico kind of gushes around to Will Anderson. Maybe that's his side of the ball. Oh, okay. When you look at Drew Scruggs, he talks really highly of him too. So I'm like, okay. So are they just being cautious with CJ Stroud at the moment? And that's kind of like I'm kind of wondering what's going on still. I'm looking at the stove. It's on right now, and the pot is bubbling a little bit. It's on a mid simmer, and I'm looking at CJ Stroud, but and Davis Mills, whatever he does is just okay, cool, great. You're my backup, bud. At the end of the time, I mean, CJ Stroud's going to be QB1 at some point. It's just a matter of when is going to happen.
Gallant, how you feel about D'Amico saying there has been open quarterback battle?
What Harley said at the end there is the way it's going to end up. Think about it from this perspective. You're a first-year head coach, and you're coming into a locker room, and I think you want everyone to know that they're on the same level. I think that there's actually, at least for now, a very strong relationship between Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryan. Nick Caserio was there with the New England Patriots. And for those who have followed me long enough, I'm originally from Massachusetts and I followed those teams. Bill Belichick made a big deal about everybody being on the same level, including the quarterbacks. And it certainly helped that when Tom Brady took off, this is a guy that was a 6th-round pick not too long before. It's a little bit different when you got a 2nd overall pick at quarterback, right? So I think we all roll our eyes in collective frustration about the idea of Davis Mills playing another game as a starting quarterback for the Texans under center. I know personally, I don't want to watch it anymore. He struggles throwing passes to the sidelines. He can't move. He can't extend plays. And he's just boring. It's nothing against him. I wish him the best. I hope he's able to find a way to carve a long career in the NFL as a backup, but that's not a guy you want to see under center. I would look at it from this perspective. They're trying to make it so that CJ Stroud earns the job. I do think that they're maybe making a little bit more of a show of this competition than they actually need to, but whatever it takes to make sure that CJ Stroud's coming in here realizing that he needs to work his ass off to get that starting gig, I'm here for. And every story, and again, there's stories coming out of practices and shorts that you're hearing about Stroud, whether it's the time that he went up to defensive coordinator Matt Burke and he asked him, hey, what was going on in this coverage? Why was I not able to break it down the way that I wanted to? Or in this week at minicamp, bouncing back from a pick 6 that he threw to Eric Murray. There are a lot of good things that you're hearing about his ability to pick things up on the fly. And if you're keeping him level-headed along the way too, coming from a place at Ohio State where, yeah, he was fighting off other competitors at quarterback, but still, like your ass is kissed on a whole other level when you are the starting quarterback in Columbus, Ohio. I like what they're doing, but I also would like this to pick up the pace so that we can just get to CJ Stroud being the number 1 guy.
Yeah, no, to me, it doesn't make sense. And both of you guys just say the same thing. At the end of the day, it is going to be CJ Stroud. What scares me is they have this quarterback competition. They have it throughout training camp. And if it's a tie at the end of the day, well, Ty goes to the second overall pick. I am sending him against Baltimore with 30 to 40% less of the snaps that he would have gotten if I wouldn't have had this quarterback competition in the first place. This is the franchise. This is the future. Davis Mills had his opportunity. He made me eat crow. He shat the bed. He is not it for the Houston Texans. It is CJ Stroud. So to me, the thought that you are taking away reps from him, it doesn't make sense to me. CJ Stroud should be stingy at this point. I want every first team rep. I want every meeting with the coaches. And, Paul, like you brought it up and said, like, he's talked to Matt Burke, he's talked to the defense. Yes, we love that. You want to hear that he already sounds like a quarterback one. It's exactly as you said. They just want to put on a show, and it's just frustrating to me.
I think that's the key word. For all of us, we just want to turn the page, because this whole offseason's been about turning the page from Lovie Smith, further from Jack Easterby. I mean, really, Nick Caserio is the one holdover from the really rough years. At least that's the way that we feel at this moment in time. Mm-hmm. So I get the sentiment. I also feel like for DeMeco Ryans, it's really important for him to set things in his own way. It's one of the reasons that, we heard all those rumors about DeAndre Hopkins maybe joining the Texans, that I thought to myself, man, this just isn't realistic. Forget whatever relationship he might have with the McNair family. It's about, is DeMeco Ryans going to want to bring in a veteran who doesn't want to practice? I think the best part about football that has been lost in some organizations is this idea that everybody is the same as everybody else, which is not true to us. Quarterbacks are way up here, the rest of the roster's down here. But I think this is the best way to go about it if you're a first-year head coach and you're trying to install the idea that nobody is greater than the team, even though, again, quarterbacks are.
Yeah, no, it's just, like I said, it's we'll just have to see how it plays out. Hardy, some big news today. Malik Collins, 2-year, $23 million extension. Nick Caserio continues to add to this defensive line. How are you feeling about Malik Collins being here for another 2 years?
Did it feel random? Like,
it did.
It just was like, I thought it was fake. I'm like, 2 years, $23 million. Oh, okay. This isn't real. And then I was like, oh, okay. No, this is real. Oh, okay. Malik Collins, you are extended. Oh, okay. So, I mean, when you look at a 3-tech in this defense, apparently it's very important to DeMeco's defense overall. 3-tech is important. Malik Collins had, some really solid years for the Texans. I still believe he's a better pass rusher than he is a run stopper. I think that's more of his forte, but he's looked well against the run, and that's tough to say when you were dead last year. But, with him, Sheldon Rankins, so far the interior should be improved rather than last year. I still am wondering around the depth behind it. Yeah, you signed Ridgeway. Cool. He knows the scheme, should be, familiar with it with DeMeco. I'm still looking at Roy Lopez, Kurt Heinisch, and I'm going, eye roll. I don't know what I'm going to get out of these two guys. One of them is going to be either cut or it could be both of them, depending on maybe some cuts during at the end of camp and with preseason and whatever, or the new rule at the very end of preseason. They have all the cuts now. So, I appreciate what he's done for you. 2 years, $23 million. It feels like an overpay, but it's necessary at the same time. It felt very random to me. Very random.
So, Gallant, I asked you not only about the signing today, but the overall Texans free agency, because once again, thank you for coming on. You are the first guest on Believe in the Texans. How do you feel about not only about Malik Collins today, but the overall free agency from the Houston Texans and Nick Caserio?
All right, I'll start with Collins. I'm with you, Harley, in that it was rather random. And
Yes.
I would point to this and the extension that they gave to Shaq Mason before he even played as head scratchers. It's not a massive burden on the team because it's only a 2-year deal, but there's a lot of guaranteed money in this deal. It's almost all guaranteed for Collins. And I would just say, well, maybe watch these guys play in the actual scheme, and maybe these are both because of relationships that Nick Caserio has specifically with the players, or maybe their agents. That's what I think of when I see a deal like this made. As far as the offseason moves, though, in totality, nothing that sexy. I think that we'd all agree that Jimmy Ward is the most exciting. And it's good that this time around he's not going to be fighting DeAndre Hopkins in practice. I actually have video of that on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. If you want to see that, very funny moment that happened. And now it comes full circle where he's with the actual Texans. But the other moves that they made, you mentioned a couple of them on the defensive line. Sheldon Rankins is exciting. Hassan Ridgeway, you know who he is. He's been in the scheme before. Devin Singletary, any other running back that's not named Rex Burkhead or the many other running backs that they were spelling Damien Pierce with, Daria Mbungawale. You wanted to have a better number 2 running back. Noah Brown's intriguing. I liked what he did in Dallas, but I'm not expecting that much out of him. Robert Woods was once awesome. I don't know if he's still that same player. That is a lottery ticket. You're hoping that he can be the guy that he was with the LA Rams. In totality, there's a lot of names. None of them blow your socks off. But that's not what you're going for when you're an organization at this spot. You are taking low risk, potential high reward players that you feel good about in a locker room. And too early to say how any of these guys are going to fare, in my opinion, really. I think Jimmy Ward's the one guy that I'm like, he'll be good. The rest, I honestly don't know. But I don't have a problem with it. And I get in the idea of impatience, but you don't win in free agency. You just don't. I feel like the Commanders and the Dolphins and the Saints, and maybe less so the Saints, but a lot of teams have tried to go big in free agency. And how has it worked out for them? You get excited in March, but when the regular season rolls around and the guy ends up not being a scheme fit, I mean, you're going to be stuck with your Spencer in your hands, right? You're just stuck with a player that doesn't fit your system. So I'm glad that they did not do anything super aggressive. Next year, I will probably feel differently.
$131 million next year. Before we get to who we think will be some surprise cuts, one player that seems to be standing out every single practice, Harley, is 30-year guy Nico Collins. And we talked about this before all these practices. He needs to prove himself. His third head coach, third OC. Shout out to Nico Collins, man, for doing a great job.
I'm excited about it. I'm also at the same time going, because immediately I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I'm glad to see Nico and CJ Stroud seem to have this chemistry together. And then I'm going, didn't I hear the same thing last year with Nico Collins? Like, does this feel like
not to this extent?
Maybe, of course not, because, is it not to this extent because it was Davis Mills, or is it because it's CJ Stroud now? Like, I feel like I heard some of this with Nico Collins. The workhorse, and the practice warrior, and staying after, and I appreciate it. I did see it live at training camp. Him staying after and getting extra work in. I love everything about him. And I'm hoping for everything to actually come to fruition. I'm excited about it. I still believe when I look at the wide receiver position, Nico Collins has a lot of potential still at that position. Playing for Davis Mills, obviously. I mean, he played 2 games with Kyle Allen. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I know Kyle Allen. I'm a big Houston Cougar fan, and I know Kyle Allen. And there was fans trying to hype up some Kyle Allen stuff, man. And that was just nasty work. That was nasty, nasty work, man. My goodness. Nico Collins, I think, has Nico Collins has some intangibles. I mean, 6'4", he's big body wide receiver. He runs like a deer. He's not fast as a deer, but he can run like a deer. And if you want to be, want to pick straws, he had a faster 40 than Tank Dell. I like throwing that out there, and people go eye roll at me. Obviously, Tank Dell has a lot more quickness, and I don't want to get into Tank Dell because there's a lot of bias there for me. But Nico Collins, yes, he's exciting. I also feel like this feels like it happened last year a bit.
Paul, not only how do you feel about Nico Collins, but this wide receiver group as a whole. D'Amico Ryan said today he's not really worried about it. How do you feel about this group?
It's a weakness right now.
Yes.
You, at this moment in time, don't have someone that can stretch the field, and it seems like CJ Stroud, that might be one of his strengths. You do have a lot of guys that have played the slot receiver position in some way, shape, or form in the past. Woods, Noah Brown, Tank Dell did a lot of it in college. You're hoping that John Mechie is going to do something for you this year, but I think any expectations, and I talked about this today with DJ Bieneme, who covers the Texans for ESPN.com, it's kind of unfair to have any expectations for Mechie this coming season, just given what he's been through, a torn ACL and beating cancer. I mean, it's just awesome that the guy's still with us and that he has a chance to actually perhaps still make a living in the NFL. But I don't put too much pressure on the guy just because he was a former second-round pick. So to circle us back to Nico Collins, I mean, like by default, with Brandon Cooks gone, he's the number one guy on the roster. I personally am hesitant to say, yeah, this guy's your number one wide receiver at this point in time, though. I feel like it's really up in the air. And I think it also goes to show you that they're going to be relying on Dalton Schultz a lot in the passing game, the tight end that they got from the Cowboys. And they're also going to be running the football a lot this season, which obviously makes a lot of sense, just given that they're going to have a rookie quarterback. And I think they're going to want to try to help whenever he gets out there, if he does get out there. I'm not thrilled with the news today about Kenyon Green and we'll see in training camp with the knee surgery that he had this offseason. But I think they want to be maulers on the ground, and they got the offensive lineman to do it.
Yeah, no, I think Dalton Schultz is going to be a great addition. He had a touchdown today at camp. Harley, I switch it to you. Damien Pierce said that him and Devin Singletary are going to be a good 1-2 punch. How do you feel about this running back duo?
You know, the offensive scheme, like Paul Gallant was saying, in its truest form, they're going to run the football. They're going to run the football down your throat. We all saw this with Gary Kubiak and his offensive scheme, and we saw the many, many, many offensive guys that have came from that offensive tree that he's had. You know, I like to include Kubiak to give him his flowers. You know, everyone says the Shanahan tree. Let me throw the Shanahan Kubiak tree. Okay, give me Kubs his love. All right, but Devin Singletary, Damien Pierce. I think Damien Pierce fits the scheme like a glove. I said it on the YouTube channel, on my personal YouTube channel. He fits it like a glove. It's like O.J. Simpson. I mean, it's going to fit right in. All right. And, you know, but he did not do it. He did not do it. All right. But it fits like a glove. It fit, you know, but he did not do it, man. Okay. We cannot, you know, no defamation of character from here. All right. Damien Pierce is definitely someone I'm looking at. 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. That was my predictions. I do have him penciled in as offensive MVP prediction for the Houston Texans. Devin Singletary, I am excited about. Maybe not as excited like our fellow podcast that we were co-hosts, guests on. You know, like Crenshaw. Shout out to Crenshaw for thinking Singletary, you know, maybe has some more oomph than Damien Pierce. Maybe I'm wrong, but I am very sold on Damien Pierce. I like Devin Singletary. He mentioned the comments around Christian McCaffrey. Slow it down a little bit. I don't know about all that, but I can see him taking some elements of Christian McCaffrey's game. He's a really good pass catching back, and that is something that they needed a second running back. We already dawned on that. But that's something that they really needed, the Houston Texans. So Singletary, Damien Pierce, both in the backfield, split back with Stroud at the gun. That's a little exciting. Schultz in there. Okay, definitely. Yeah, I don't have no problem with that whatsoever. Yeah.
Dude, I'm still caught up on that comment about the glove. But Mr. Paul Gallant,
I am too. OJ definitely fucking did it. Stop. He did it. Anyway, I just rewatched the Made in America 4-part documentary. I don't want to get us too sidetracked.
That was a great.
What a great documentary. I just rewatched it this weekend because I was talking with somebody and she told me growing up, like, I really didn't see any of this. And I know you guys are young. When I was growing up, like, my first memories of things on television were just O.J. Simpson trial every single day. I didn't know what the fuck was happening at all. But you get older and you look into the details. It is amazing that they fucked up that case, the prosecution against O.J. Simpson.
Yes.
They totally butchered it. And as you mentioned, Chris Darden. Anyway, I could go all day on this. I'll bring it back though to the running back group. Look, Devin Singletary is a bowling ball. He is 5'7", but 200 pounds, and he is the kind of player that complements Damien Pierce very well, in that you're hoping that they both have similar skill sets. Now, Pierce runs like a OJ out there, a murderer. He wants to get contact. He wants to run people over. I love that about Pierce, but there's a shelf life for that. So you want to have somebody else that can do that. And as you mentioned, Harley, there's the pass catching element that you had with Singletary too. And you're hoping that that's something that Pierce is going to be able to blossom into. I think the thing that's interesting to note about just where the San Francisco 49ers are is that they spread the wealth among their running backs. Take a look over the last 6 seasons. Carlos Hyde led them in rushing in 2017.
Yeah.
And guess how many yards he had? 938.
Mm-hmm.
You had Matt Breida with 814 in 2018. You had Raheem Mostert in 2019 leading the way with 772. You had Jeffrey Wilson in 2020 with 600. You had Elijah Mitchell with 963. And then, of course, they traded for Christian McCaffrey midway through last season. And that changes a little bit because McCaffrey, we know what a damn good player he is. And he had a 746 yards on the season in a year. He was banged up a bit. They have always, the Kubiak system, I mean, go all the way back to when Kubiak was the offensive coordinator for Mike Shanahan with the Denver Broncos. Like, they find ways to get the most out of running back. So you feel very good about it, but you also know that they're going to have to find a way to limit Pierce's workload so that they are not running that guy 100% into the ground. And I do think that as far as backup running backs go, Singletary is a very good second option. So I like the running back group. Honestly, I'm very curious as to who else they might add. And I feel like when we get into training camp and surprise cuts are made, that there will be options for them to add to the stable, if you will.
It'll be interesting to see. Boys, this was a great fire episode. Real quick, I'm going to ask you guys, what are some surprise cuts you see at the end of training camp? I'm going to go ahead and let you know Davis Mills is going to be cut. You are turning the leaf. The future is CJ Stroud. Case Keenum will be the backup. And here's why I say this, because all last year, my ass was walking up and down Houston saying Davis Mills is going to prove himself. And it only took us 4 games to realize he's not it. I'm just being biased here, but Davis Mills, you will no longer be a Houston Texan.
Wow. I can't go that far. I feel like there's a good chance Mills is on the roster next season, but I think that they will potentially think about trading him, and it's a matter of if some quarterbacks get injured, is somebody going to look at Mills and think that they can get more out of him than the Texans can? So maybe that happens. But now, especially that you saw what happened last year in the NFC Championship game where you saw the injury that Brock Purdy suffered and they didn't have another quarterback on the roster, that does not limit your roster spots anymore, right? So maybe in years past, I could see that happening, Ruben, but I think for this time around, they're going to end up keeping Mills on the roster. I don't think we're going to see that much Davis Mills. I say that now, and I remember in 2017, I thought we weren't going to see Tom Savage again, and then Deshaun Watson tore his ACL. So you never know, obviously, with injuries in this league. But as far as surprise cuts, there are a couple of guys that I'm looking at. I would say number one, Christian Kirksey at linebacker. I mean, they brought in Denzel Perryman and Corey Littleton this offseason. And if they do release Kirksey, they're going to save about $5.25 million. He's the one that would save the most money. I think that we might see a surprise cut at the cornerback position too. I don't know who. I would take a look at both Steven Nelson and Desmond King's just contract numbers and say that, hey, they could save some money. They did just bring in Shaquille Griffin, a guy that I covered in Seattle, who is a lot more of a scheme fit with what it seems like the Texans are trying to run. So that cornerback group, it's a loaded position. I could see maybe one of those guys potentially getting the axe at the end. But for the most part, is it going to be really that surprising if anyone gets cut, just given the way that this roster is? You know, like there's 53 roster spots, but nobody looks like a massive cap liability in the way that you saw Justin Britt as last season, or Brandon Cooks, but he decided he didn't want to show up for work.
Harley, for you, who would be a surprise cut for you?
I mean, it's not Davis Mills. I'll tell you that right now. I know you have some bad feelings towards him, but just a backup quarterback on a rookie deal, that's just not something I'm going to cut. But I'll have to say Kirksey. Kirksey's the one, and that's really dependent on Henry To'oTo'o and what he's doing at the time of some of the preseason games, how he's developing, how he's progressing so far, and then they're gonna, if they feel comfortable enough to make that cut for Kirksey, then yeah, I would do that. You mentioned the cornerback position. That was the one I thought about immediately with Steven Nelson holding out. That is someone that I'm looking at, especially with Shaq Griffin being a cover 3 scheme fit for this Houston Texans team. That would be pretty fair. Not fair for Nelson, a guy that's looking for more money, but hey, he signed with David Mulligetta. So, I know he's looking for an extension. Does he get it? Does he not? Is he even worth the extension? That's a whole other conversation. 30 years old. Good cornerback play, though, is really scarce in the NFL. So, I mean, it's a little tough, but we also are depending on his cornerback play with Lovie Smith's scheme. Does he necessarily, is he going to fit into everything with DeMeco Ryan's scheme? He should. I mean, DeMeco, we've seen in Robert Saleh's scheme with the 49ers, numerous cornerbacks, guys that I had never really heard of, or guys that were just coming back from injury, one of them being Verrett from the Chargers. I can't think of his first name, but he played he played very well for the 49ers during his short stint there because he got injured again. But I think Nelson, Kirksey, those are the two ones that I think about immediately. A surprise to me, that's not really surprising. Maybe Nelson is a surprise, but I'm trying to think of a cut that's rather surprising. There's nothing that really comes to mind.
What do you feel about Brevin Jordan?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I forgot about Brevin Jordan.
Tegan Quitoriano, Andrew Beck, fullback / tight end.
That makes sense, actually. That makes sense. I forgot about Jordan.
It's a light room. There really aren't that many good tight ends. I messed it up, by the way. Jason Verrett is the guy that I was thinking of. Yeah, that guy was so good. He kept on getting hurt. Really Poor guy. Really
good with the Chargers. Just kept getting injuries. Then he went to the 49ers, and boom, lightning in a bottle for a little short time until he got injured again. But Brevin Jordan's one. I could see that. Again, there's not many names to that position attached, but Dalton Schultz. I am a little excited about TQ and the progression that he showed a lot of in what was disparity and smoke and disgustingness last year offensively. There was a small glimmer, and every once in a while TQ was very, very like, oh, look at this guy. This is a guy that I thought was only a blocking tight end coming out of college and was going to be predominantly used in the goal line. And this guy's got some hands. This guy can make some plays for you. I was excited about it. I actually was. Not that excited. But yeah.
Every time I see his name, I think I'm reading Quentin Tarantino.
Dude, yeah.
I get dyslexic because, obviously his last name is because of the Q and his first name because of the T. I have no idea why I see that, but every single time I'm like, oh, it's Tarantino. Oh, wait, I can't read.
Yeah.
This was a fire episode. Paul Gallant, thank you for being our first guest on here. Let the people know where they can find you.
Okay, well, I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. I'm also on the TikTok.
Yes.
TikTok.com/ do you say TikTok.com? I don't even fucking know. But I have a TikTok. The Gallant Says podcast. I do it Mondays and Thursdays live on the YouTube channel. You can get it in podcast form as well. And if you want to listen to me in radio form where I don't get to swear, but I do get to be goofy, I am on every single weekday on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 from 10 to noon. So if you're driving around looking for some food at lunch and you want to hear a weirdo talk about sports, I'm your guy.
Harley, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me. I have a YouTube channel @TheLead_HOU. Just type that in. It'll come up immediately. I cover all Houston sports, Astros, Rockets, and Texans, just the majorities. No Dash and Dynamo here. Sorry, I don't know. I'm not well informed with the soccer folks, mates, but I do apologize about that. I'll be getting into some of the breaking news around Lance McCullers and everything that's surrounding that. He is very stubborn and frustrating to say the least, but expected. Rockets, obviously,
Zion coming for the 4th overall pick.
I don't know if that's happening.
Bring me horny boy. I'll take it all day.
I don't know if that's happening. All right.
Bring my reels with you.
Oh my God.
No, not sure if that's happening, but yeah,
we cannot. This guy cannot come to Houston. This city makes everyone fat as it is. You think that guy will ever play again? If they get Zion Williamson here, that guy is going to be 350 pounds and playing defensive line for the Houston Texans in a heartbeat. No, you got Pinkertons, you got the barbecue, you got the tacos. You can't let this guy come here. I love you, Zion. I feel like you could do better than what you're doing, given that you're a basketball player and you shouldn't need to pay for sex. But hey, whatever floats your boat. But I'm telling you, you come here, you think you're going to get shit for being a bigger guy? The food here is amazing. It's impossible to keep the tire off your belly.
Hey, man. Him, Harden duo? Dude. The strip clubs are going to love them. The strip clubs are going to. They're going to have. They already got Harden's jersey hanging in the rafters of all the strip clubs, and then they got a space left for Zion Williamson. Bring him home. A guy that has multiple injuries and has a what could have been kind of dude thing. It just screams Houston sports star. I love it. This screams J.J. Watt, Yao Ming. Like, what could have been Zion Williamson? Yeah, he needs to be in Houston. I'll take all 22% of games he played last year.
Let's go ahead and do it. You can find me on YouTube. Just type in 713 Houston Sports in the search bar. On Twitter at 713 Houston Sports. This was another fire episode of Believe in the Houston Texans. Go Texans. Y'all have a very blessed day.